Hello, this is Keith All, and welcome back. Today's tutorial is going to be about conditional formatting within Excel 365. Now, conditional formatting could be used for multiple purposes, and that is, in this particular case, I'm going to show you multiple different cases where you could highlight your data based upon certain conditions. So our first example is where we're going to highlight this database, and we're going to highlight all rows where a certain price, which is the retail price column, is greater than 50. So how do we do that? Well, let's first understand how conditional formatting works. So let's scroll over here just a little bit so I can read some definitions for you. And basically, in this particular case, like I said, we're going to highlight all rows where retail price is greater than 50. Now, since conditional formatting rules is applied to the entire range of cells that you selected, the key is the cells that you select. Excel evaluates the condition for each cell in that selected range. Now, absolute column reference, in this particular case, we're going to start with F6. And this ensures that the formula always checks the value in the retail price column, which is right here. Okay. For each particular row. Okay. So then a relative row reference, which is a 6, is this allows the formula to be applied to each row in the selection, adjusting the row number accordingly. So in other words, when Excel is going through its calculations, it's always going to base the formula on, we're always going to check for a condition that exists in column F, always. And as we move down row by row, it's always going to check whether or not this retail price is greater than 50. So in other words, in this particular case, it's going to check whether or not $49.99 is greater than 50. If it is, it will highlight the row. If it isn't, it won't. And when it gets down to this particular row, it's going to perform the same formula. It's going to check whether or not F12, okay, is greater than 50. If it is, it will highlight the row, and if it isn't, it won't. So let's remember those conditions that I just applied as we go through all these different scenarios here. So let's go ahead and let's do this. So since we're going to highlight the rows, I want to select the entire data range, Control Shift down arrow, Control Shift right, and then Control backspace to bring us back here. I selected my range. I'm going to go up to Home tab, Conditional Formula, and it's a new rule. And we're going to use this selection here, use a formula to determine which cells to format. So I'm going to select that. Now we paste it, or we put in our formula. So we're highlighting all rows where retail price is greater than 50. So I'm going to go ahead, click this button here to make it easier instead of me typing it in. So it's going to look at this here. As you can see, it automatically makes an absolute for row and column. We don't want that. We just only want the absolute for the column portion. So let's go back here. I have to press F2 to edit this. Okay, now equal to, greater than 50. Okay, let's do this. Now let's select our formatting rule. So I'm going to select this. A font, you could do this any way that you want. I'm going to make the font bold, and I'm going to make the text white. We're going to go to the Fill tab, and I'm going to select this dark blue. So I'm going to click OK, click OK. And as you can see, it highlighted the rows where retail price is greater than 50. As you can see here, that price is greater than 50. Same thing with here. You can see the rows that weren't highlighted is retail price is less than 50. Okay, so that's one example. Let's go to the next example. So we're going to highlight individual cells now. Okay, let me fix these arrow, Control Shift down arrow. Let's ignore this. Okay, Control backspace. Okay, now we're going to do this a formula. So we're going to highlight individual cells based upon whether or not the customer that we select over here is equal to here. So let's do that. So we want to just highlight individual cells, not the entire row, just individual cells. So in this case, we're going to highlight the customer name. So we're only going to select the customer name column. Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace, and then we're going to go up to conditional formatting, new rule, use a formula, and we're going to do this. So we're going to say is D6, and again, it automatically defaults to absolute for both row and column. So let's press F2, and we don't want that. Okay, is equal to the value that we select over here. Now this case, we're going to always keep absolute for both row and column because we always want the formula to always check the value in this cell. Let's do this. Let's format. Again, we could do the same formatting. Click OK. Okay, and as you can see, it highlighted John Smith because that's what I have selected over here. So let's select a different name. Let's go down here. And as you can see, it moves it down. Let's select another name. Same thing. If I go down in the list here, okay, let's scroll down. As you can see, Matthew Garcia was highlighted. Okay, so that's another situation. Now let's go to the next situation here. We're going to highlight adjacent cells, meaning cells that are next to each other. I already have the formatting here, but let's go up here, and I'm going to delete the rule. So we could build it from scratch. Okay. Again, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight cells that are adjacent to each other based upon the condition that we set. And we're going to do this by, we're going to select a name, and if the name is selected, then we're going to highlight the cells. So we're going to select adjacent cells. Control Shift down arrow, Shift right arrow. Okay, these are all adjacent cells. Control backspace. Okay, now let's go up to conditional formatting. Let's new role. We're going to use a formula. Okay, we're going to select D6 again. Let's hit F2, backspace, equal to the value that's over here. We're going to keep both row and column absolute for this cell. Let's do formatting, bold, or just to give you a flavor of different things. I'm going to highlight, make the text italic, and the fill. Let's select the same color. Okay. And as you can see, it made the text italic in all cells. Okay, now let's go over here. Same thing. And as it deselects something else, it doesn't apply that formatting. So it erases that formatting from the previous selection. Same thing. Okay, so that's how you do it for adjacent cell. Now, how do we do it for non-adjacent cells like this? Again, let me remove this and let's build it from scratch. Okay, the same thing. We're going to base our condition on whatever value that we select over here. And just to backspace a little bit, this is a data validation rule that where I selected all the names in the customer column and went up to data and then data validation, and I selected list over here and I selected that range. So in other words, it's going to build a list in this particular cell over here of all the values, all the unique values in this column. So that's what I did there. So let's select non-adjacent cells. So same thing. We're going to Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace. Now let's select a non-adjacent cell. So I'm going to click on Control, select, Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace. Let's go up to Home, Conditional Formatting, New Rule. We're going to select this, F2 to edit it, equal to the value that's over here. Let's select the formatting rules. We could do a different color, font. Let's make it bold and italic this time. Okay. Now Christopher Thomas was selected. Let's scroll down here. Okay, now let's see what I did incorrectly. Okay, let's do this again. Okay, what I did incorrectly was I selected the wrong cell over here. So let's go up to Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules, select here, and let's edit it. So instead of L5, it should be K5. So let's click inside here, press F2, and press and do K. And there you go. So it changed the text to bold and italic, and it highlighted those two. Let's select a different and there you go. So that's how you do non-adjacent cells. Now let's add a little bit more to the formula. Now in this case, we're going to highlight all rows where the ship date is after in other words, the shift date is a certain number of days after the order date. So I already have this. So basically, we're going to check whether or not the ship date is greater than the order date plus 7 days. Okay. So the same thing. We're going to use this formula here. And let's go up to Conditional Formatting, Manage Rules. I already have it set up, so let's just edit the rule. So you can see it's always checking column E, okay, the ship date, and checking whether or not the value in here is greater than the order date plus 7 days. Okay, so let's click out of here. Let's close out of here. And as you can see, in this particular case, we have an order date of 1/5. We have a ship date of 1/13. So how do we know this is working? So let's make this 12 here and see what happens. It doesn't format it because of the fact that the ship date is not greater than, okay, the order date plus 7 days. So let's randomly select another one and change this. So let's pick 7 days beyond 1/7. So if we do 7 days, which is 14, remember it's greater than. So we want 8 days. So we want the 15th. So there you go. It highlighted the entire row. So that's another way. Now the last scenario is we want to see whether or not the value in the tax column is greater than a certain percentage of the retail price. Okay, so we're going to use this formula over here. So as we can see, we're going to take H6. Okay, we're checking whether or not the value in H6 is greater than F6 times 15%. So let's do that. Let's copy this. Okay, and then we're going to highlight rows. So we want to select the entire range. Control Shift down arrow, Control Shift right arrow, Control backspace, conditional formatting, new rules, edit rule, and then we're going to paste that in, then format it. Let's go back to bold, fill, any color that we want. Click OK, and there you have it. So if we take, let's take $19, okay? Remember, it's checking the tax value. So if we take $19.99 times 15%, whatever value that is, if that is greater, if the tax here is greater than the value here, the calculation here, it's going to highlight the row, in which it did. So if we take here, let's do a quick formula. Let's see what the value is. We're going to take that times 0.15. So we get $2.99. And the tax here is greater than that, so it's going to highlight the row. So those are certain or simple kind of scenarios where you could use conditional formatting to highlight your data set. I want to thank you for stopping by today. You have a great day, and remember to subscribe to my channel, and also please like and comment on this video. Thanks again. You have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video.